All right, I want to start by welcoming everyone to our athletics town hall meeting regarding the return to campus and the COVID-19 mitigation. My name is Gus Henrik, and I've been the Director of Athletic Communications at St. Mary's for about 2 years, and I will be your host for today's presentation. Just before we begin, the questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. We had a couple of pre-submitted questions that we'll go through first, and then we'll answer any questions that we get in the chat. Also, just a friendly reminder, please make sure you're muted throughout the presentation. Next slide, we're going to go over some COVID-19 resources. The first one being the SMCM reopening. You can see the URL there to the right. It's just on the St. Mary's College main website. And the one below, we have the NCAA COVID-19 resources, which can be found on the NCAA's website. Now I'll turn it over to our first presenter, our Director of Athletics and Recreation, Crystal Gibson.
Good evening, everyone. It's so great to have you guys joining us today. I first want to just say how happy I am to be back on the campus of St. Mary's. I've been gone for 3 years, but I have a very fond memory of my time here, as I spent 6 years at St. Mary's prior to returning here after a 3-year absence. I know that our student athletes are incredible in the classroom, in the community, and in our athletic programs in terms of competition, and I just can't wait to get you back here. For some of you in a few days, and everybody here within the next few weeks. So really looking forward to it. Today, we really want to just go over a few of the policies and procedures and how we came to put those into practice over the last couple weeks and couple months. It's been a long time coming, and I know you guys are excited to get back on campus, bring your students back to campus, and know that that's going to be done in a health and safety manner, and that's what we're aiming to do today. First, I want to talk to you about our decision-making process and how they came about. As you all know, our conference, the CAC and the AEC, decided in July that we will not be having contests. Prior to that, the college had made a decision that we would also not be hosting fall competitions. Overall, those decisions are made at the conference president level, and they do have the final decision. Those decisions are made based on the health and safety as a number one priority for our student athletes, our coaches, staff, campus, and surrounding community. As it's in our best interest to be the best partners that we possibly can be as we try to engage ourselves back into a residential campus lifestyle. And you'll hear that a lot throughout the presentation. As we move forward throughout this semester, I know we'll have questions about what does that mean for our winter sports? What does that mean for our fall sport athletes whose fall competition isn't happening, but what will happen in the spring? We will continue to have conversations at the conference level for all the conferences in which we participate in, including MARCA, so that CAC, AEC, and MARCA. Those decisions are looking to come in mid to late September in terms of for the remainder of the fall semester and in the spring semester. So please just stay alert. We are working on those. We're meeting weekly, a group of athletic directors and our presidents, just to make sure that we know what the progress is of the virus on our campuses in our regions, and we can make accurate decisions for the health and safety of our student athletes. You can go to the next slide. So as you arrive to campus, there's going to be some expectations of us as student athletes, as faculty, as staff. But the big thing is that we really aim to continue to engage with our student athletes, with their coaches, and with their teammates. And our coaches have been talking for weeks about ways that we can make this happen. And we are committed to providing an opportunity for engagement in practice, off the field, through different opportunities through the athletic department. And you'll see that right when we start classes, whether you're on campus or remote. A lot of those opportunities are going to come via virtually on Zoom. We're looking to address several issues, including mental health and leadership and engagement, as well as diversity and inclusion. And that's on top of the practice opportunities. So those organized athletic activities are going to occur. It's going to be in a phased approach with small groups, and they're going to be sports specific. Later in the presentation, Jen Robertson, our head athletic trainer, is going to address what that phased approach will look like. And I know you guys are anxiously awaiting to hear a little bit more about that. In addition, as student athletes, we really need to take pride in following these policies and procedures, because we want to keep this a residential campus as long as possible and be able to get ourselves back to having competitive opportunities. So those new policies and procedures that are going to apply from an athletic standpoint, but also for our campus, what we're doing when we're away from the arc, when we're away from the stadium field, when we're away from the waterfront, what we're doing in our classrooms and what we're doing in our residence halls are really important, that we're abiding by those policies and procedures. The last thing in terms of our expectations on campus, we will have all of our student athletes review and sign a Seahawk pledge. That is just making sure that you understand what is expected out of you as a student athlete and how we can uphold our community in the best way possible. So look for that when we go through our compliance meetings. The big thing is, as we continue to venture through this process, we have to understand that everything is subject to change. All plans are fluid. As you guys well know, a plan that was made today could very well change tomorrow, as there's no playbook for the pandemic that we're in right now. So I spoke with our staff earlier today, and we all know that patience isn't our strong point, but we have to exhibit it just a little bit, as we know that things are going to be changing, but it's all for the health and safety of everyone involved. This is not in any way going to be a normal semester. We're not going to have games that we can go cheer for our teammates, for our friends, for our family. But we are going to have as many opportunities as possible to come together, to work together and become a better community. So we're really going to look to all of you guys to be able to help with that. As we try to move through our phases, so like I said, we'll have a phased approach into getting through our practice opportunities. It's going to take a collaborative effort. So it's going to, our student athletes, you're really going to have to take ownership of this and what you're doing on and off the field, when you're in the buildings and not in the buildings, making sure that we are practicing clean and healthy, safe environments. We can only move through these phases with the help of you. So it's really going to take we're going to need you to take some ownership of what you do, of what the person next to you does, what your teammates are doing. Like I said, be a leader on campus and help change the culture. It's all about accountability. I know you hear that from your coaches all the time. But the big thing here is that that's what it is. We need to be accountable for our actions. And that's what's going to get us from August to November in a safe manner and get us returning here as soon as the spring semester happens. So it takes all of us to get us there.
And now for our next presenter, I'd like to introduce our Associate AD for Internal Operations, Jim Cranmer.
All right. Good evening, everybody. And again, thank you for joining us today. So a couple things. And the first thing is, please remember the NC2A is a membership-driven organization. So, there's been a lot of, we were waiting for the NC2A to make decisions, but in reality, NC2A was going to wait to see what the schools were doing. So, and that's what ended up happening. The Board of Governors, which oversees the NC2A, came out with some guidelines last week. One of those guidelines was, in order to hold a NC2A championship, if 50% or more of the schools in your division canceled or postponed the season, you cannot hold a conference championship. Or excuse me, national championship. So that's where we are in terms of the NC2A for our fall sports right now. So one of the things they have done is they've gone to a eligibility waiver across the board, or it's called a blanket waiver. So what they said is, as long as a team, if they play games, in this case, or fall sports, if they do not play more than 50% of the maximum allowed contests, the student athletes can still retain a year of eligibility. So, for example, soccer could play up to 10 games in the spring, and as long as the school does not play over 10 games, those athletes will still have the opportunity to come back if you wanted to. So that's one thing we're looking at. Our conference, as Crystal talked about, is in flux. They have been talking about the possibility of still having a conference championship in the spring. So hopefully, again, we'll let you know as that comes on. The other big thing they went to this year was typically seasons are divided into traditional and non-traditional, and each sport gets a certain number of weeks. Instead, this year they went to 114 days, which is the equivalent of 19 weeks. So what that means is you don't have to go consecutive weeks. If a sport does go 6 days in 1 week, you do have to have at least 1 day off, but we can spread it out more and do a lot more work like that. So the coaches and myself will be keeping a track of how many days we do, and so instead of the number of weeks, and that's gonna have the big effect on, again, the fall sports. Traditionally, you only have 5 weeks or 16 practices in the spring when you had your fall season. Now we have 114 days to use between the fall and the spring, depending how many days we can use in the spring. And again, like I mentioned, the fall season, NC2A decided it would not be logistically possible to hold NC2A championships in the spring for the fall sports, so they've canceled those this year. They're in discussions on winter and spring as the COVID-19 virus progresses. We'll keep you up to date on those as they let us know what's going to happen with those. Next slide, Gus. Again, our normal, we will have to do our normal paperwork because everybody hopefully will be able to have an opportunity to compete against outside teams this year. So we still will be doing our NC2A paperwork. We'll be doing those meetings by Zoom. The other big thing is going to be, get the work done in the classroom. This past spring was probably the best spring that the department have had since I've been here. I want to say our GPA was a 3.22 for the spring, which is by far the highest it's ever been. So, we know it was a rough semester for you, but please make sure you're keeping track of your GPA, class requirements, and your credits. Even though you get the year back, that is still contingent on you being eligible. So if you, as a first year, if you don't meet that 2.0 GPA, you're not going to be able to practice in the spring. Or as a returner, if you don't maintain that cumulative 2.0 GPA, you're not going to be able to practice. So it's really going to be important that you keep doing the classwork. The coaches, most of the coaches will be having academic meetings with you still. That's something that will not count towards 114 days. And the Office of Student Support Services, Mary Dorsey and Joanne Goldwater will still be having meetings with them, and those are going to be important resources for you to use. The other thing that will start here is going to be the daily symptom check, and that's going to be coming out through your Gmail every single day. Every day it's important whether or not you come to practice or whether or not you come to campus that day, get in the habit of answering that email. Even if you're at home remote right now, it's going to say, are you coming to campus, yes or no? Just click no, and that's fine. If you are on campus, you need to go through, you need to click, you need to take your temperature, you need to answer all those questions so you are allowed to move freely on campus. And again, as Ms. Gibson said, it's going to be important for everybody to follow these symptom checks. We've been hearing of schools, whole football teams not following the standards and them going into 14-day quarantine. We don't want something to happen where we do start practicing, somebody gets sick, and all of a sudden your team can now not practice for the next 2 weeks. So please, please, please make sure you follow these rules. The other new thing the NC2A just came out with about 2 hours ago is if anybody has a concern about how the school is going about handling practices, or we start having competitions in regards to COVID-19. There is a hotline number here that you can call, or an email that you can email them, what institution, the sport, and what your concern is. So there's a way for you if you think something is not right, you don't agree with something. Another way you want to do it is, if you don't want to go to either myself or Ms. Gibson, is last year the Maryland Higher Education Commission came up with a policy for an out of athletics department area where if there's any athletic concerns you have, even if it's not COVID-19, you can express these to an out of athletics person. For our school, we use Michael Dunn in the Title IX office. So you can email them, call them. Here's the website. You can report any concerns you have with athletics to them. I believe that's all I have.
And on to our next presenter, we have our Michael P. O'Brien Athletics and Recreation Center Director, Tom Fisher.
Is there a video first, Gus, or?
Yeah, we have a short 2-minute video of Tom taking a quick tour through the building with some of the policies. So we'll play that first.
Gus, I don't think we can hear it.
There's no.
Check.
Still can't hear it?
After that, patrons will proceed to the welcome desk behind me, where they will check in with their ID card, complete a waiver, and then they are free to use our facilities. Welcome to the Climbing Wall cardiovascular area at the Michael P. O'Brien Athletic and Recreation Center. As you can see behind me, we have removed some of our cardiovascular equipment to maintain social distancing. We currently have 3 treadmills, 2 ellipticals, 1 power mill, 1 arc trainer, and 1 upright bike available. In addition, we will be limiting capacity at our climbing wall to 5 patrons per hour. We are now in the ARC Fitness Center. As you can see, we still have all the equipment available to our patrons. However, we will be limiting capacity to 10 people per hour during hours of operation. As we continue our tour, we are now in the recreation courts. Patrons will be happy to know that all activities that normally take place in the recreation courts are still allowed, but we will just be limiting capacity to 15 patrons per hour. Welcome to the Aquatic Center, the final destination of our art tour. As you can see behind me, we are in our 25-yard pool. Patrons will have the ability to reserve a lane for an hour during normal hours of operation for a lap swim. Currently, right now, our 25-yard pool will be available once school starts. Once renovations are complete in the 50-meter pool, we anticipate having that available by early September.
Okay, so I just want to thank Gus for helping me prepare and edit that video for your viewership. Just want to make some updates to that for the items that were presented in that video. We've made some modifications to the equipment available in the fitness center itself. There are 4 to 5 pieces of equipment that will be inaccessible, just so we can create a more safe environment and socially distance our patrons while they're working out in the fitness center. So the biggest adjustments that we have made on the ARC side is our hours of operation, and those were even changing as of yesterday as a result of the phased in return. So right now our hours of operation stand at, when we return to campus on Monday, we will have hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and then again have hours of operation from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. hours of operation on the weekends will be 12 to 3:30 p.m. The reason for those changes are with the phased-in return, we are going to be severely limited on the number of student workers that we have on campus to start the semester. So we will do the best we can to maintain those hours of operation until we are have all our students back on campus. And then with that limited student availability for student workers, we're also going to take some of our spaces offline until all our students are on campus. So those areas would be the climbing wall will be not available until students return fully on Monday, September 7th, as well as the lap swimming will not be available until Monday, September 7th as well. As you can see on the tour, we've done the best that we can to create a safe environment for our students, faculty, and staff to work out, whether it be limiting capacities within our facilities or moving some equipment or taking some equipment offline. So as Coach Gibbs or Crystal Gibson mentioned, it's going to be a team effort to make sure that we're all abiding by these policies, not only the ARC staff that I employ, but also the patrons that are using our facilities. So there's going to be an increased requirement that we clean our equipment before and after, and then just abide by some of the campus policies that are going to be expected of our students on campus, most notably wearing a face mask, even when you're working out in any of the spaces within the ARC. And finally, the biggest change is probably going to be, we are now going to require students, faculty, and staff to use our reservation system through IM Leagues, which can be found on the Michael P. O'Brien Athletic and Recreation page off of the main athletic page. You would just need to register and create an account and then just sign up for any of the sessions that you would like to sign up for. Limitations are 1 session per day per space. So there may be an occasion where you can sign up for multiple spaces in the same day. We will be working with our athletic coaches and their respective teams to find specific workout times for their teams around our normal hours of operation that are open to students, both non-athletes and athletes. And
now for our next presenter, we have our head athletic trainer, Jen Robertson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being a part of this. I know there's a lot of questions kind of revolving what our practice is going to look like and how things are going to be set up from our end. Starting with the physicals, nothing's really going to change with that as far as the sports medical packet, health histories, those kind of things. That also needs to be completed prior to return to campus. Again, if your physicals are delayed, make sure you get those in. Nobody's allowed to practice until they're officially cleared. If you have any questions, you can follow up with your coaches. They have access to the roster clearances. If there's anything missing, if we did get your packet and there's anything missing, you will get an email from us specifically. So if you have questions, check your email, talk with your coaches, and hopefully they can kind of navigate those for you. And if there's any major concerns, you can always reach out to me. As far as practice goes, the school kind of came out with the daily symptom checker. Make sure you guys are doing that, okay? Before every practice, we'll also be doing an additional symptom check. We'll be out there doing temperature checks, kind of reviewing symptoms. Just so you guys know, we're taking this extremely serious. If you miss any kind of checks, whether it be on the Qualtrics from the school, whether you're missing them prior to practice, you may be subject to a 14-day isolation from athletics, okay? We just want to make sure that if we are going to start doing practices, that everybody is doing their part, make sure that they don't have any symptoms, so that way we can have a safe environment for everybody involved. If at any point, whether during the summer or anytime like closer to January or any point in the semester at all, if you have tested positive, you've got to reach out to me right away, reach out to your coach. We've got to know these things. There might be further evaluations that are required. So we just want to make sure that things are streamlined as quickly and as easily as possible for you guys. As far as the training room operations goes, again, you know how much I love you guys loitering in the training room. However, we're going to have to change those dynamics right now because of COVID and do an appointment based. So if there's something that you guys need, reach out to me, reach out to Michelle. We'll actually have 2 more athletic trainers on staff this year to kind of help out with everything that's kind of going on with COVID. So I'm super excited. So once we kind of get those navigated and get them kind of settled with their sports, you guys will have direct contact to your specific athletic trainer that can help out. If by chance an appointment is not available, telehealth options. If you just have questions about nutrition or, just have general questions, we are available. So please just reach out and we'll figure out a time to either meet, whether on the computer or in the training room. We'll try to really minimize as much pre-practice and post-practice treatments unless necessary, just to kind of reduce anything. If we are doing anything, we'll definitely try to do them outside. That way we can kind of still have people around, but we still can maintain that social distance. Again, it's gonna be weather dependent, what else is going on, but we try to make sure that everybody's spaced out and maintaining that social distancing. As far as the water bottle goes, just like every year, we'll pretty much supply those for you guys. So that way, if you need more water or would like your own water bottle, please feel free to bring those too. Make sure your names are on them so there's no sharing, that kind of stuff. As far as like the overall practices go, the introductory phase, again, with the revised move-in plan that came out last night, we're still working on making those adjustments to the timeline. But just, there might be some virtual activities, but again, you must be cleared from our standpoint, from the roster clearance. Again, if there's any questions, talk to your coach first, and then if there's any additional questions, you can reach out to us specifically. From that point, we'll kind of start working into phases. Phase 1, we'll be working in small groups, probably about 10 or less. These groups will be consistent throughout the entire phase. We'll be limiting, to 45 minutes tops, and no contact. Again, the purpose of this, is kind of getting back involved into athletics. Again, a lot of you guys have kind of been in a sedentary lifestyle, maybe not practicing as much as you would have. Again, the sedentary or more sedentary lifestyle really promotes major injury and illness risk. So we're trying to just kind of build things up incrementally. So phase 2, we'll have a little bit larger groups, definitely more organized, 60 minutes practices, but again, we're going to keep contact to no contact. And when we get to phase 3, we'll kind of get into the limited contact, 90 minutes. We'll talk about inter-squad scrimmages once we get there. Again, overall, as far as culture change, I mean, this is completely different than what, any of us is ever used to. And as Crystal kind of mentioned, there's no real playbook for this. But again, everybody needs to do their part as far as making the health and safety kind of following suit with those regulations. Again, these are all guidelines that are brought to us by NCAA, the National Athletic Trainer Association, the CDC, the local health department. We have everybody on board kind of helping us kind of direct these policies and procedures. But we need your guys' help to kind of help mitigate the risks that are involved. So washing your hands with warm soap and water before practice, after practices. Make sure you're showering after practices. If you don't have the ability to wash your hands, use hand sanitizer. And then at any time, like throughout campus, throughout your social life, whatever the case may be, wearing masks, keeping those social distance is going to be key. Again, athletics is kind of riding on all the athletes kind of doing their part. So we're definitely going to need your guys' help and commitment to this.
All right, moving on to our next presenter. We have our Director of Outdoor Facilities and our head men's soccer coach, Alan Oliver.
Everyone, so access to the outdoor facilities, which include baseball fields, tennis courts, the practice fields, the Jamie L. Roberts Stadium, and the club fields as well, will be severely limited, especially at the beginning of the semester. Student athletes will not be able to have access to those fields unless there's a coach present. However, there will be flexibility as time goes on with regards to that, and that will be going through, you'd be going through the coaches and or Mary Beth for those times to use those facilities. Locker rooms will be closed through phase 1 and 2. And a big thing here, obviously, when practices do begin, is that student athletes will need to make sure that you're prepared. Now, everything is going to take a little longer. So obviously going to see Jen and in the training room is going to be a little bit longer. Going to get your laundry, and that whole process is going to be longer. So make sure that you save a little bit of time and make sure that you are preparing yourself for that. Again, it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to, but we'll get through that together. Hours of operation for the outdoor facilities will be based off of every team's athletic schedules, and that will be done by the coaches and or Mary Beth with the club sports.
Thanks, Alan. I believe Crystal wants to touch on something before we get into the questions segment.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, Jim, Tom, Jen, Alan, everyone, for just providing those bits of information. I know there's a lot more information, a lot more questions that you guys have out there, but I do want to address this, is that we all learned yesterday that we will have a phased approach back to campus. And as Jen said, a lot of these decisions are being made from a county perspective based on the state and local guidelines. And in St. Mary's, you know, we operate within the county of St. Mary's County, and it's important that we are cooperating with the local health department to ensure the safety of not only the community members outside of our campus, but the community members on our campus. So that is where we found the charge for the phased approach to campus. As we received that information yesterday, we haven't been able to fully put together the plan in terms of what our how our student athletes will return back into practice for those that will not be returning this weekend or next weekend, and how long it will be prior to practice. So we will be working on that between now and the next 2 weeks, and we hope to have it in place prior to we start practice. Note that again, it's going to take a little bit of patience. We are not going to be able to phase everybody back in as soon as they return to campus. We want to ensure that it's the safest environment possible. So just bear with us through this. Jen has done a tremendous job these last few weeks of putting together a plan of action that we feel is as safe-proof as it possibly can be at this point. We know that, you know, that there's going to be areas where we're going to have questions, we're going to have some concerns, but we're going to work through those as a community. And, you know, feel free to come to us at any point if you have any concerns as well. So I just wanted to address that prior to we get into the question portion. Now I'll open it up to Gus to throw the questions at us.
All right, on to the questions part. So we have a few questions that we received prior to this presentation, so we'll go through those first, and then we'll open up the chat and answer some of those questions based off of this town hall meeting. So just some of the pre-questions that we received, I'll let our staff kind of just jump in and answer these. Will people need to wear a mask if they go for their own run on campus?
So the answer to that is yes. The college has put together a health and safety guidelines, which you should have received via email, or you could also access on the SMCM reopening page, which we had at the beginning of this presentation. Everybody is to wear a mask inside and outside of buildings at all times. So whether you're on a run on campus, whether you're working out outside, and you feel like you're socially distanced, you will need a mask. We will be providing our student athletes with masks. And it is one where you can work out in. It's not going to limit your ability to breathe and exert additional energy. It will allow for that. So we will have those coming prior to the start of practices.
All right, Tom, here's a question for you. Will there be any opportunity for teams to reserve time in the weight room, assuming that we create groups of 10 or less?
Yes, the hours that I mentioned, the 6 to 9:30 a.m. and the 6 to 8 p.m. are open to the student population in general, but obviously there are going to be gaps in time when the ARC is not being used and not open for reservable time, and we will use that time block to work with the coaches to provide opportunities for the student athletes to work out either inside or on the outdoor facilities.
All right, Tom, sticking with you. People will need to sign up ahead of time to use the ARC. Will there be any required sign up to use the athletic fields? Well, that's Alan as well.
As of right now, yeah, you have to sign up in advance to use any of the reservable spaces in the ARC. And as I mentioned earlier, you're limited to reserving one space per day. You can go to another space in the facility, but you just can't use the same spot twice in one day. And right now the blocks are 45-minute time blocks. Actually, I apologize, 50-minute time blocks. Then we have a 30-minute break for cleaning, followed by another 50-minute session. So we're breaking up our reservable time to allow for increased cleaning frequencies. And as of right now, we don't have any reservable time for the general student population or student athletes, for that matter, for our outdoor athletic spaces.
With regards to the outdoor athletic spaces, that will go through the coaches as well. So you'd be able to do that through them.
All right, Tom, another one for you. Will people be allowed to use Somerset Gym?
Yes, they will be. That is a reservable space. However, there are going to be limitations. It's only going to be for individual work and skill work. There are going to be no pickup games allowed, whether it be 2-on-2 basketball, 4-on-4 soccer. So Somerset will be available, but just strictly for individual and skill work.
All right, next question we have is, will we be allowed to host overnight visits for recruits?
No, we will not. And that's going to be per school policy. The school's decided for at least the fall semester that they will not allow overnight visitors.
Will recruits be able to attend classes if they come for a day visit?
As same thing as of right now, no. However, recruits will be allowed to contact, or we can contact the professor and get in on a Zoom classroom visit. But because each classroom has a limited number of spaces, we will not be allowed to have in-person classroom visits at this time.
Will we be able to run ID clinics on campus? And what about off campus?
On campus, no. Because again, right now, as of Monday, we are not allowing outside groups on campus either. And if it is off campus, that will be something that you can work out with your coach. Look at that possibility, and that will depend on where you want to host it at.
Will players be able to meet with coaches at all when they check in August 15th/16th?
So we are going to allow players to meet with their coaches during check-in. So whenever that is, when you return to campus, whether it's this weekend, next weekend, or the following 2 weekends, what we're asking is that coaches hold these meetings if possible in an outdoor space. We will be asking that our coaches have reservations for meetings in their office to eliminate the crowds in our hallway. As you all know, whether this is your first year on campus, I'm sure you came for a recruitment visit, or whether you're a returner. Our offices, the best part about it is that we're close-knit, we're a close-knit family, but it also causes for concern when we're trying to physically distance those that are in that space. So our coaches will have in-person visits by appointment, and then that first weekend as well, we're hoping to host those opportunities outside, as that you'll probably have additional family members with you.
Okay, a question for Jen and Jim. Will there be a waiver for anyone who is asthma or considered to be more high risk?
We are still working on the additional paperwork. If there's anything needed, we're still getting things cleared through our physician. But as soon as we have things put together and or a definitive decision, we'll definitely get that out to you guys.
Okay, and on to our last question that we got prior to the meeting. If someone tests positive for COVID-19, will their parents be able to take them home and or visit?
So yes, the school has a few stances on this. Is that there will be space available on campus for those individuals if they are to test positive or if they've been in contact or exhibiting symptoms, that they will put them in isolation spaces that have been reserved on campus. If a parent wishes to take their student home, that certainly will be allowed. But obviously, we would like to keep the cases in a confined area. The students will receive meals twice a day from dining services, and they will have daily checks through their RAs to ensure that they are still progressing and safe, and also have opportunity to have access to their classes if they feel up to being able to attend them. But they can also go back and do that work online. But as it is now, if you want to take them, you may.
All right, so if anyone has any additional questions related to the information we went over in the town hall meeting, please drop them in the chat. We have one question right now. Will testing be offered? If so, how often?
So one thing that we do know is that we will be testing those individuals who are symptomatic. That can occur on campus if you go to the health center, or if you're off campus, you can go get tested at local facilities that offer testing as well. In terms of surveillance testing, and Derek, please look at Derek Young's email today. They said that there will be some cohort testing to gauge the virus spread and mitigate that on campus. So how that will go into action, Derek Young would be a great person to have a conversation with. He will have more information for you for that.
I would like to add, if you feel that you are going to get tested or that you need to get tested, make sure you contact your coach and the athletic trainer too. Put them in the know.
All right, we have a question for Coach Childs, and Jen, this probably involves you as well. How will practices be conducted with no contact? Will the players have use of the locker room, or they need to keep their gear in their dorms?
As of right now, the locker rooms are going to be shut down for at least for phase 1 and phase 2, just to kind of shut down the close-knit areas. What was the first part of that question again?
It is, how will practice be conducted without contact?
Okay, so a lot of that's so phase 1, phase 2 is gonna be very much of the skill-based type stuff, whether that be individual skill work, whether that be some passing type stuff. Again, you're not gonna have the full contact. Think about what you do on a smaller scale stuff, or some side drills that you might do that are socially distanced. It's not gonna be a full-on practice. You're not gonna have contact, but again, we're kind of doing phases as far as activity goes, not only for the health and safety, from an illness standpoint in the, I guess, the social distancing, but also to help mitigate the risks of injury as well.
Yeah, and we've taken into account, one, as you mentioned, the health and safety of our student athletes, but we also want to be able to provide opportunities for athletic outlets. So to be able to go through these phases still increases that engagement with your teammates, with your coaches. You're still going to be having that camaraderie, but it's just going to look a little bit different, just like everything else this semester. So, we want to take it slow. We want to make sure that we're doing our part to help ensure that our campus remains a safe and viable option for all students to study in person and residentially. So, we will be taking it, or your coaches will be offering a lot of different options for you, whether they're virtual options, whether they're in-person options. And we've worked to ensure that it's going to give you an experience. It's going to be a different experience, but you're going to have an experience that we would like to provide.
All right, sticking with Jen, will athletes be provided reusable water bottles to bring to practice, or will we as athletes be responsible for that?
You guys will give everybody a water bottle. They will be responsible for their own water bottle, whether they want to put names on it, whatever the case they want to do. If they want to bring their personal water bottle instead, that's perfectly fine. Again, we'll still have the water jugs that are out there, but what we'll probably end up doing is having hand sanitizer out at the water jug. So you have to hand sanitize, before you fill up your water bottle, and then again afterwards, just to kind of help mitigate, again, any risks.
All right, next question. Are the tennis courts open/available to be reserved, or are they closed? If we wanted to have small group workout sessions, can we have them there?
As of right now, they are closed. Like I said, we will hope to have some flexibility with regards to that. And once we have that, that will go through the coaches in order for them to reserve that as well.
Okay, next question. What phase for practices are we in now, and when will the school look at moving into the next phase?
So we will enter, when everyone returns to campus, we will be in the pre-phase process. In the pre-phase process, we will be through all virtual meetings. There will be no in-person practices. And the purpose is this is to allow everybody to adjust to the campus, to allow for, the reacclimation process within residential living. And that phase will be around 2.5 weeks, 2.5 to 3 weeks.
Okay, this is a men's lax related question, but I think it'd go for all sports. Are we allowed to play wall ball, catch, or do running drills on campus when our coach is not present, as long as we are not violating social distancing policies? If so, where can we do that?
Yes, you can do it. If you want to do it inside, you'd have to reserve a spot through IM leagues. If you want to play wall ball inside, if you want to get a wall on the outside of it, that's on, again, that's gonna be on your own. Again, following the social distancing rules, and so you're more than welcome to that kind of stuff. Yes, individually.
Okay, so that's it for the questions in the chat. Last call if anyone wants to drop any other questions. We got a couple more coming in. So commuters don't need a COVID test, but do they need a test before team practices? And if so, when will that be?
Yes, we will need everybody. If you're going to be part of on-campus practices, you will have to be tested. Again, it's mandated for everybody that's living on campus, so it'd be your responsibility to get that done. And I need to have basically a note from the local health department saying that you're good to go. So preferably that would be done. I think it's taken close to 10 days, I think, at this point to get results. So I'd say 10 days before practice would be a good time to get those tests if you haven't already gotten them prior to moving onto campus.
All right, next question. Can students have captain's practices on JLR Stadium? Hold on one second, just moved up. Is the practice field next to JLR open as well?
No, not at this time. They will not be able to have captain's practices on the JLR Stadium. Practice field, the flexibility, again, as time goes on, there will be some flexibility with that, and that will go through the coach.
And just as a reminder, in terms of all captain's practices that might occur, that will need to, again, remain. If we're in phase 1, I'll need to follow those phases. So small groups, no contact, no scrimmaging. And our coaches will be monitoring those areas to ensure that is occurring. So even if we're not in our traditional practice with our coaches, the same rules apply outside of that.
Okay, we have a few more questions rolling in. Will masks be provided to all students or just athletes?
All students will receive a bag when they arrive to campus that will have masks in there. So I think there's a disposable box of 50 masks that will be able to last for the entire semester.
What is required to move into the next phase of practice?
We'll be looking at a variety of federal, state, and local guidelines, and also the campus as well, to kind of see if there's any influxes, to make sure that the hospital can handle any kind of influx of positive cases. Again, I know that everybody's kind of heard about COVID, but kind of really seeing the risks firsthand. We can absolutely overflow St. Mary's Hospital very quickly if all precautions are not being made. So again, this is going to be not just my decision. This is going to be based on a whole bunch of, I guess, numbers and directives from the campus, local, state, and federal. So again, I don't have a specific timeline for things, but again, it's, you know, going to be kind of dependent on what's currently going on in the current trends.
Question related to that. Pre-phase is 2.5 weeks. Is there a chance that will be extended?
There's a chance, absolutely. Again, this is a moving process. If, like I said, we're using, as you guys well know, as of last night, you know, things kind of changed on a dime as far as when people are allowed to move in. Again, this whole policy can kind of change on a dime too. This is very fluid. Again, we're kind of trying to stick to the roughly 2 to 3 week time frame for the phases, and if we can do that, great. Let's get this going, because I want athletics as much as everybody else does on the Zoom. But again, we also have to make every precaution possible to make sure that everything's to reduce the risks.
Other
I was saying that's why it's important when you're talking about no captain's practice, because again, it's 2.5, 3 weeks, no major outbreaks on campus. If all of a sudden there is a major outbreak, athletes are involved, that could push back the start time. So that's why, that's what we're trying to say. Small groups, no captain's practices, a lot, individual work, just because we want to avoid those so we can go into the next phase. Sorry, guys.
Guys, I think we have time for about one more question.
Okay. So I'll kind of bring two into one. The intro phase lasts 2.5 weeks after everyone moves in. Then fall athletes won't be able to practice together until October. And then when are practices allowed to begin? Because some of us have to wait longer to come to campus.
Yeah. So that's the piece where I spoke to just prior to the start of the questions. We're still evaluating that. Now we just received the information about the phase approach to campus. As it is right now, we're hoping that we will be able to enter, we may be entering a phase approach of who's getting into phase 1, phase 2, before we get into large groups. As it is in terms of those 10-person groups, it could be 5 people just talking about our first years and sophomores and then our juniors and seniors folding into the mold. But we are evaluating that. That time frame is to be determined. We'll be working on it within the next week, and we should have that information out shortly prior to your arrival on campus if you're not on campus this week. If we have one more, we're probably good.
Okay. Let's see here. Last one. Okay, so realistically speaking, where are we supposed to work out student athletes that is not violating campus policy or stuffing too many athletes inside the recreation courts? Wouldn't having the turf/practice fields open promote social distancing than squishing into one area on SMCM campus?
So the whole idea is that we're communicating through our coaches and having some professional contact in utilizing our outdoor spaces. We're not saying that you're not going to be able to utilize the turf fields. We're not saying you're not going to be able to utilize some of our outdoor spaces. What we're saying is there needs to be some guidance there, and the reasoning for that is because we know that you're gonna want to go out there and do as much as you possibly can, but we wanted to make sure that everything's safe, that we're keeping everything under control as much as we possibly can. So we won't be stuffing people into the rec courts. We won't be stuffing people into the gym, strictly because, as Tom mentioned, we have a limitation on the number of people that are going to be in that space. We will have the practice fields available for use. The fields and the varsity fields in the stadium will be available as they can be. So there's plenty of space around. The idea is that, again, we phase ourselves in. There's going to be opportunities for all of our student athletes to get in. As we said, we're going to have opportunities in our weight room that athletes are going to have more time in there. Which will be helpful as you try to prepare for getting yourself acclimatized to becoming back to a varsity student athlete. Again, it's just going to be, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about patience. You know, having those communications with your coaches. Our coaches are really working hard to create spaces where you're going to be able to thrive and be able to continue working towards your athletic goals. And, you know, and that's what we're looking to provide. So, you know, as we end this presentation, I just want to thank everybody for getting on, for, you know, taking the time. I know how much this means to you. And I know how much, how hurtful it is for those of our fall student athletes who have lost their seasons. You know, that doesn't go unnoticed and it doesn't get swept under the rug. We want to be able to create opportunities for you to continue to compete. And that's why we're working at the conference level to see what's going to be available to us in the spring and have those opportunities. So please stick with us. Again, we're really looking forward to having you back on campus. You know, it's been a quiet summer around here. We've all been stuck in our houses. I know that same as you have. So we're excited to be able to get out and meet you. I'm excited to be able to meet you and see you. And if you have any questions at all that weren't answered during this presentation, please submit them to your coaches. We will be following up with an FAQ document of those questions that weren't able to be answered through these town halls. If you have additional questions that you want to answer, you can always jump on to our town hall, which we will host tomorrow at 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.